A service dog barked continuously at a stroller in a busy mall. The mother became angry, security was summoned, and shoppers grew frustrated. But when the blanket was finally removed, what they witnessed moved the entire crowd to tears. Before we begin today's story, please leave a comment below indicating your location. And if you enjoy heartwarming stories about police dogs like this one, remember to subscribe. Prepare for what's about to unfold. The Westfield shopping center was filled with the usual weekend shopping activity. Families with strollers filled with bags, teenagers gathered around the food court, and a continuous blend of 1,000 conversations filled the space under the large glass ceiling. Afternoon sunlight shone through the skylights, creating warm areas on the polished tile floors as shoppers moved through the busy walkways between stores. Jessica Winters navigated the Saturday crowd with a practiced and efficient manner, her steps deliberate and measured. Beside her walked Echo, a Belgian Malinois wearing a professional red service vest with medical alert patches. Unlike the hurried shoppers who bumped shoulders and moved around each other, Echo moved with military precision, maintaining a perfect heel position despite the chaos, his attentive brown eyes occasionally glancing up at Jessica's face to check her status. "Excuse me, please," Jessica said as they moved past a group of teenagers who had stopped suddenly to take selfies in front of a clothing display. She kept her right hand lightly on Echo's specialized mobility harness, not because she required the physical support that day, but because the connection helped her feel stable amidst the overwhelming sights and sounds of the mall. The holiday decorations had already been put up, even though Thanksgiving was still 2 weeks away. Large silver and red decorations were suspended from the ceiling, and artificial pine garlands adorned the railings of the second-floor walkways. A faint piano version of Winter Wonderland played from afar, struggling to be heard over the noise of the crowd, the sounds of conversations, squeaking stroller wheels, and periodic announcements from the mall's public address system. Jessica glanced at her watch. It was 2:17 p.m. She had planned this trip carefully, arriving after the lunch rush but before the evening crowd descended. Her mental checklist was almost finished. New running shoes, the birthday gift for her niece, and one more stop at the bookstore to pick up the novel her book club was reading next. Then she could return to the quiet sanctuary of her apartment before the familiar tension in her shoulders escalated into a full-blown anxiety attack. Echo stayed calm and composed, his training clearly visible in his deliberate actions. He didn't behave like typical dogs who might investigate spilled food or react to appealing smells. Instead, he concentrated entirely on Jessica and any possible dangers to her safety. When a young child unexpectedly cried at a store called Toyland, Echo quickly assessed Jessica's response, prepared to offer deep pressure therapy should the noise upset her. Fortunately, this was a positive day. Jessica reacted with a slight flinch, then proceeded walking with a deep breath. The central court of the mall appeared before them, a circular space featuring a decorative fountain and benches for weary shoppers to rest. Jessica guided them toward the quieter path along the perimeter, avoiding the congested group of people observing a weekend product demonstration. Echo modified his speed seamlessly, guiding their path as though he and Jessica functioned as one unit within the crowd, their synchronicity stemming from countless hours of shared experience. Jessica had not always required Echo's presence. 5 years ago, she was Staff Sergeant Jessica Winters, a combat medic with the 4th Infantry Division, recognized for maintaining remarkable composure amidst the most severe mass casualty events. She had treated wounded soldiers under fire, stabilized blast injuries in helicopters, and once performed an emergency airway procedure during a sandstorm with almost zero visibility. Her commanding officers had described her as unshakable. Then occurred the roadside bomb outside Kandahar. Jessica had been the first to respond, treating 3 critically wounded soldiers while awaiting medevac. She had rescued all 3, but the 4th, her closest friend on the deployment, had died despite her desperate efforts. The consequences were stark: traumatic brain injury, shrapnel wounds to her left leg, and the unseen wounds of PTSD that ultimately proved more debilitating than her physical injuries. Returning to civilian life had become a minefield of triggers. Crowds, sudden noises, certain smells that instantly transported her back to the worst moments of her service. She explored therapy, medication, and support groups, but none provided complete relief until the VA's service dog program paired her with Echo 3 years ago. Echo was a unique service dog. This Belgian Malinois had been removed from a military working dog program, not due to a lack of skill, but because of his gentle nature, a characteristic that made him ideally suited for medical alert duties. His specialized training encompassed recognizing the minute biochemical alterations that foreshadow Jessica's panic attacks and seizures, a complication stemming from her TBI that occurred infrequently but posed a significant risk. He is observing your body chemistry, the trainer had clarified during their placement. Variations in your respiration, minuscule perspiration, and even alterations in your walk that you won't perceive deliberately. Echo will provide a warning before you are even aware of an issue. Their bond had developed past the boundaries of training. Echo possessed a remarkable skill in evaluating risks in Jessica's surroundings, differentiating between minor anxieties and real threats. He would position his body to shield Jessica from anything potentially triggering, whether approaching strangers or sudden movements, while largely remaining unnoticed during everyday interactions. Above all, Echo had restored Jessica's independence. Prior to this, she had rarely left her apartment, neglecting medical appointments and withdrawing from friends and family. Currently, she volunteers twice weekly at the VA hospital, has restarted her nursing education, and can navigate public spaces like this mall, still challenging but achievable with Echo's consistent support and alerting abilities. Many people didn't realize that beneath Echo's calm professional appearance lay a dog capable of detecting incredibly small chemical shifts, changes undetectable by human senses or medical instruments. His alerts stemmed not only from excellent training, but also from a complex biological detection system combined with steadfast loyalty. Jessica directed Echo towards the central court fountain, intending to cross over to reach the bookstore on the opposite side. As they walked past a row of benches near the fountain, Echo's demeanor shifted, his ears pricked forward, his head lifted slightly higher, and his gait lost its fluid rhythm for a brief moment. Jessica noticed it instantly, having spent 3 years together. Even the slightest changes in Echo's behavior registered like alarm bells. "What is it, buddy?" she murmured, scanning the area for potential triggers. Echo's attention had fixed on something ahead and to their right. Jessica's attention followed his gaze to a navy blue stroller situated next to a bench. A woman, seemingly in her 30s and with dark hair styled in a loose bun, was organizing shopping bags nearby. The baby in the stroller seemed to be sleeping calmly under a thin blanket featuring cartoon elephants. Jessica softly adjusted Echo's harness, trying to get his attention. "Come on, focus." However, instead of following her instruction, Echo's body became even more rigid. A soft whine came from him, a sound Jessica had seldom heard from her well-trained service dog. Echo moved closer to the stroller, abandoning his heel position for the first time in public that Jessica could recall. "Echo, heel," Jessica instructed more sternly, feeling a blush rise on her cheeks as a nearby elderly couple looked in their direction. Service dogs were meant to be unobtrusive in public spaces. That was the expectation. Echo had never deviated from protocol in this way before. The dog obeyed with evident hesitation, returning to her side while still watching the stroller. After 3 more steps, Echo stopped abruptly, firmly placing his feet and declining to budge from the stroller's line of sight. "Is something the matter with your dog?" the mother inquired, observing Echo's focused attention. Her voice carried a trace of irritation as she looked between her shopping bags and the service dog. "I'm sorry," Jessica started, but Echo interrupted her apology with a quick, forceful bark that resonated across the central court. People shopping turned towards the sound, their faces showing a mix of curiosity and disapproval. "Control your dog, please," the mother stated, her annoyance now clear. "You're frightening my baby." However, the baby hadn't moved at the loud bark, a detail that Jessica's training immediately recognized as odd. Typically, sleeping infants would react with a start to such a sound. Echo barked once more, then again, his barks becoming increasingly urgent. It wasn't aggression. Jessica understood Echo's behaviors completely. It was an alert, mirroring the pattern he exhibited when sensing a potential medical crisis. "Ma'am, I believe," Jessica began, but the mother interrupted her. "Service dogs shouldn't bark in public. the woman retorted, rising and moving defensively toward her stroller. You need to leave. Two mall security guards, both wearing navy blue uniforms, moved towards the disturbance. The taller guard, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair, and a name tag identifying him as Wilson, spoke to Jessica. Ma'am, we've received reports of your dog causing a disturbance for shoppers. Is everything all right? Echo continued to bark, pulling towards the stroller with unusual focus. Jessica felt as though many people were watching her, judging, and presuming she lacked control over her service dog. The demands to apologize and depart were intense, yet Echo's actions conveyed a contrasting message, one that years of collaboration had shown her to be reliable in interpreting. My service dog is medically trained, Jessica stated, working to maintain a composed tone. He is specifically alerting to something concerning regarding that baby. This isn't typical behavior for him. The second security guard, a younger woman with her hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, approached the mother. Ma'am, would you please check on your child, just to be cautious? This is absurd, the mother protested. She's fine. Simply taking her afternoon nap. I'm only shopping for less than an hour. Wilson frowned, visibly uneasy with the circumstances. Ma'am, he addressed Jessica, service animals are not permitted to be disruptive in public spaces. Mall policy dictates that. I'm aware of mall policy, Jessica responded, her voice revealing the influence of her military training. Echo wasn't issuing this alert arbitrarily. He was detecting a medically significant issue. Echo had now activated his complete medical alert sequence, sitting stiffly, vocalizing with a characteristic 3 barks, then pawing the ground. This was the same pattern he exhibited when identifying Jessica's rare seizures in advance, a behavior that had prevented serious injury on multiple occasions. Look, Jessica stated, referencing her medical experience, I served as a combat medic. Echo is programmed to recognize specific medical crises. There's an issue with that baby, and each moment we spend debating could be critical. Jessica initially encountered Echo on a rainy Tuesday at the Patriot Service Dogs Training Center in Colorado, recently completing intensive therapy and still using a cane for her left leg. She initially doubted a dog could achieve what medication and counseling had not. Instead of the warm welcome Jessica anticipated, Echo approached her cautiously, deliberately sniffing her hands, her legs, and her breath. He then settled directly in front of her, his eyes fixed on her face as if committing every detail to memory. The turning point in their partnership occurred 3 months into their training. Their initial period had presented difficulties. Jessica's fluctuating symptoms required Echo to identify patterns that even medical devices sometimes failed to detect. The team utilized scent samples gathered during Jessica's pre-seizure states, anxiety attacks, and normal days to train Echo to distinguish between them. Subsequently, one evening, while Jessica was having coffee with her roommate, Echo abruptly initiated his alert behavior, remaining rigid, emitting 3 distinct barks, then pawing the ground. Jessica felt well and initially attributed it to a training mistake. Echo, settle, she commanded. Instead of following instructions, Echo had turned to her roommate, Diane, repeating the alert pattern with increasing urgency. Maybe he needs to go out? Diane suggested, rising. She had taken 2 steps when she collapsed to the floor. Paramedics later confirmed she had experienced a dangerous blood sugar crash that could have resulted in a coma if she had been alone. Echo hadn't been alerting for Jessica at all. He recognized Diane's declining glucose levels, a condition she hadn't received a diagnosis for at that time. Following that day, Jessica's faith in Echo became unwavering. Whenever he provided an alert, she responded, irrespective of whether she experienced any symptoms herself. That established history of trust is what provided Jessica with the assurance to maintain her position now. Although met with skeptical looks and the mother's initial hesitation, Echo had gained her confidence through demonstrated dependability, and she was committed to supporting his warning, regardless of any awkwardness. A small group of people had assembled, whispering amongst themselves. An older woman approached. Perhaps you should examine the baby, dear. It's better to be cautious. The mother's certainty lessened a little as she looked at her child, who remained perfectly still. She claimed to be a deep sleeper, but a note of doubt entered her voice. Your baby hasn't reacted to any sounds, Jessica remarked gently. Not even a flinch at Echo's barking. That wasn't typical behavior for an infant. The mother's face changed as she processed this. She turned to the stroller, her shoulders showing strain. Please, please, Jessica said, her voice becoming more gentle. Echo has never been incorrect about a medical alert. Not in 3 years. My concern for your daughter prompted my request. The security guards looked at each other, appearing uncertain about the appropriate procedure for this uncommon circumstance. Wilson approached the stroller. Ma'am, may we briefly examine the situation? He asked. Then everyone can resume their activities. The mother paused, then agreed, moving towards the stroller. Very well. I'll demonstrate that she is simply sleeping, and then I anticipate an apology. Jessica remained behind, ensuring Echo stayed calm as the mother bent over the stroller and carefully pulled back the blanket with the elephant design. The woman's annoyed look quickly changed, and color left her face. Madison, she said, her voice growing louder. When the baby didn't react, she touched her daughter's cheek. Madison, wake up, baby. The security guard stepped forward instantly as the mother's voice rose to panic. She's not waking up. Tears streamed down her face as she desperately unfastened the stroller's buckles. If something's wrong, please help. Wilson quickly radioed for medical help, and his partner assisted the mother in lifting the unresponsive infant from the stroller. The baby's lips were slightly bluish, and while her chest rose with shallow breaths, she didn't respond to her mother's increasingly frantic efforts to rouse her. I'm a former combat medic, Jessica stated, stepping forward with composure. Can I assist while we await medical personnel? The mother nodded vigorously, tears running down her face as Jessica drew near. Echo remained calm, his earlier urgent alerting now replaced by watchful observation. Jessica assessed the baby's vital signs with practiced skill. She is breathing, but it's shallow. Pulse is detectable but weak. Jessica turned to the mother. Has Madison been unwell recently? Are there any existing medical concerns? No, nothing, the mother responded, stammering. During her routine checkup last week, everything was perfect. She simply fell asleep while shopping. An older man then approached from the assembled group. I'm Dr. Brenner, a pediatrician, he stated. May I examine her? With the mother's consent, the doctor rapidly assessed the infant. Pupils are responsive but sluggish, he observed. Temperature appears normal. He turned to Jessica and spoke softly. This looks neurological. How long has she been unresponsive? I don't know, the mother cried. She fell asleep approximately 40 minutes ago. She typically sleeps soundly during shopping trips. The movement of the stroller. Her voice faltered as the realization struck her. Oh God, has she been like this the entire time? I believed she was simply sleeping. Mall medical staff arrived with a first aid kit and oxygen. Shortly after, paramedics navigated the crowd with a gurney and pediatric medical equipment. Service dogs signaled to the baby. Dr. Brenner briefed the paramedics. The infant is unresponsive, but breathing. Possible neurological event is suspected. As the paramedics commenced their assessment, the lead EMT observed Echo, a Belgian Malinois medical alert dog. These dogs are remarkable scent detectors. Last year, we had one alert to a carbon monoxide victim who exhibited no visible symptoms. Their olfactory capabilities are extraordinary, Dr. Brenner stated, watching Echo with renewed respect. Certain studies indicate they can identify molecular changes at concentrations as low as parts per trillion. Finding it is comparable to locating a single drop of blood within 20 Olympic swimming pools. The medical uses are still being explored, especially for illnesses where early diagnosis significantly enhances results. Ramirez nodded as he secured a pulse oximeter to Madison's small finger. He had observed dogs detecting seizures prior to clinical signs, identifying malignancies before scans could, and even forecasting cardiac events. This little one is lucky that you and your partner were present today. Amber Parker, holding her daughter's hand, whispered, Your dog knew. How could he possibly know when I didn't? The paramedics responded with practice speed, securing the infant to the pediatric backboard and connecting monitoring devices. Paramedic Ramirez examined the readings, his expression concerned. Oxygen saturation is lower than I'd like, he observed, placing a small oxygen mask over Madison's face. These readings indicate potential seizure activity, though without convulsions. We are considering the possibility of absence seizures or a postictal state. What does that mean? Will she be all right? Amber asked, holding her daughter's hand. We need to transfer her to Children's Hospital for a definitive diagnosis, Ramirez stated. Fortunately, we are identifying this early, preventing potential oxygen deprivation that could cause harm. While a female paramedic was rechecking Madison's vital signs, she paused, moving closer to observe something. Ms. Parker, has Madison received any medications recently? The paramedic inquired. No, none, Amber replied. She has never taken medication. The paramedic indicated faint markings on the inner side of Madison's elbow. These appear to be injection sites, but they are very small, the type we sometimes see with specific medical tests. Amber stated, with evident confusion, that the only injection her child had received was for routine vaccinations during the checkup last week. Dr. Brenner examined the marks and frowned. He noted that these were more recent than a week ago and did not align with typical vaccination injections. Echo immediately became alert, focusing intently on the diaper bag hanging from the stroller handle. Jessica recognized this particular behavior. Echo had identified something significant. Ma'am, Jessica said cautiously. Would you mind if we examined Madison's diaper bag? Echo is signaling something within. Amber agreed promptly. Any prior doubts disappeared. Naturally, anything that could assist. Security Officer Wilson took the bag, and Jessica directed Echo through a methodical scent examination. The dog quickly pinpointed a side pocket, persistently nudging it with his nose, employing the method he uses for identifying substances. Within the pocket, a small medicine bottle was discovered, labeled as infant acetaminophen, though the security seal was broken and the bottle was only half full. I didn't place that there, Amber stated, her face growing paler. That's not our brand, and Madison hasn't required any pain medication. Ramirez carefully placed the bottle in an evidence bag. We'll have this analyzed at the hospital. It's possible it contains another substance or has been altered. The second paramedic spoke with urgency. Madison's oxygen levels are decreasing. Immediate transport is required. As preparations began to move Madison, Echo whimpered gently and rested his head against Jessica's leg. This was his way of indicating that his task was complete. He had identified the underlying issue well before human observation of the symptoms, potentially averting a significantly more severe outcome. Your dog is remarkable, Dr. Brenner told Jessica as the paramedics began moving the gurney. For 30 years, I have worked in pediatrics, and I observed no outward signs of distress in that child. Yet, he recognized the situation instantly. Amber, accompanying the gurney, glanced back at Jessica. Thank you, she said, tears flowing down her face. I'm so sorry I didn't believe you. If you hadn't insisted, she was unable to complete the sentence. Thank Echo, Jessica responded quietly. He is the hero here. The Central Court had been converted into a temporary command center. Police officers arrived soon after Madison was transported, establishing a perimeter around the stroller. A bottle from the diaper bag was now considered evidence in what the lead detective described as a possible instance of intentional drugging. Echo remained composed beside Jessica as she provided her statement to Detective Portman, a woman with a serious expression and kind eyes who documented every aspect of Echo's warning actions with considerable interest. According to Portman, the dog identified a problem with the child prior to any outward signs of illness. Jessica corroborated this, confirming that Echo possesses specialized scent detection training for medical emergencies. He is capable of identifying chemical alterations within the body that signify specific medical occurrences. Jessica further stated that Echo specifically indicated the diaper bag after the child received treatment. She explained that he exhibits distinct alert patterns depending on the circumstances. His actions concerning the bag indicate he perceived a substance present, rather than solely a medical issue. Portman added another notation. Ms. Parker stated the baby had a checkup last week. We are investigating who may have accessed the child or her belongings since that time. Wilson arrived accompanied by the mall manager, a tense woman wearing a charcoal suit, who identified herself as Diane Reynolds. Ms. Winters, Reynolds stated, I want to express my sincere gratitude to you and your service dog for your actions today. Our security team will be reviewing our protocols concerning service animal alerts. She looked at Wilson, who appeared suitably concerned. We recognize there are some areas where we need to improve our training. Echo was simply performing his train tasks, Jessica responded. Wilson added, the hospital contacted us with an update. The baby is showing signs of stabilization. Medical tests were underway, but the doctor mentioned that a further delay in treatment could have had serious consequences, then stopped speaking, leaving the meaning unstated. A young woman who had been shopping in the vicinity approached cautiously. I filmed what occurred using my phone, she stated. I didn't mean to be odd, but my brother is applying to service dog programs, and I wish to demonstrate how they function in public settings. She then asked if the footage would be beneficial to the police. Detective Portman promptly collected the woman's contact details. That could be extremely valuable evidence, thank you. As the crowd gradually dispersed, an elderly man approached Jessica. Young lady, I want you to know I've contacted the local news. People need to hear about this, not just about the unfortunate situation with the baby, but about the incredible work service dogs like yours perform. Jessica experienced a moment of worry regarding potential media coverage, but Echo instinctively leaned against her leg, offering the calming pressure that helped manage her nervous system. She inhaled deeply, concentrating on the most important aspects. Madison was undergoing treatment, an inquiry was in progress, and Echo had performed as he was trained. The police concluded securing the area while Jessica and Echo were readying to depart. Officer Wilson approached them at the mall entrance. He offered a sincere apology to both of us. 20 years in security and I've never seen anything like what your dog did today, he said. If we'd followed protocol and asked you to leave, he shook his head, expressing gratitude for your resolve. As Jessica and Echo walked through the parking lot toward her car, the adrenaline from the incident began to fade, leaving her physically drained but mentally clear. She stopped beside her SUV, kneeling down to bring herself eye level with her partner. You did good, buddy, she whispered, gently stroking Echo's face and neck. Really good. Echo's perceptive eyes stayed focused on hers, his expression reflecting complete satisfaction now that his task was finished. He moved closer, touching his forehead against Jessica's in the familiar gesture they frequently shared following challenging situations. Jessica reflected on how she almost questioned Echo due to societal expectations, the looks, the security personnel, the mother's initial displeasure. Apologizing and leaving would have been simpler, attributing Echo's behavior to a temporary lapse. The pressure of public opinion had nearly eclipsed years of collaboration and mutual trust, but Echo remained unwavering, continuing until someone acknowledged his perspective. His conviction prevented a child from a situation paramedics believed could have been intentional drugging. The realization sent a shiver down Jessica's spine, even under the warmth of the afternoon sun. As Jessica started the engine, a text from her VA counselor appeared on her phone. It referenced the news alert about a service dog saving a baby at Westfield. Could that have been Echo and her? The counselor suggested she call if she needed support following the event. News spread rapidly. By tomorrow, reporters would likely be calling, potentially requesting interviews. Ordinarily, this would cause a surge of anxiety, but surprisingly, it felt different this time. Sharing their experiences might help people recognize the crucial role service dogs play, not only in assisting their handlers, but also in safeguarding the broader community. Echo relaxed into his seat, his alert stance softening into a calm watchfulness, ever prepared but no longer sensing immediate threats. Jessica met his look in the rearview mirror, feeling a wave of thankfulness for this remarkable animal who had profoundly changed her life and now had protected someone else. Believe in your dog. This was the initial instruction in service dog training, the basis for all subsequent commands. Recent events had demonstrated why this belief wasn't merely training protocol, but significant insight. Occasionally, a companion could detect things beyond human perception and human assessment. Occasionally, trust meant the difference between a disaster and a fortunate outcome. Have you ever observed an instance where an animal detected something humans entirely overlooked? What accounts for some animals' remarkable ability to sense medical emergencies even before symptoms are apparent? Would you have believed a service dog's alert regarding a stranger's baby, despite the potential for embarrassment? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories of heroic service animals. Click the bell icon to receive notifications when we upload new videos each week. Please share this video with friends and family who value the special connection between people and their service animals. Watch our previous stories about canine heroes now, and tune in tomorrow at the same time for another inspiring story you won't want to miss. The police dog halted abruptly in the dark alley, refusing to proceed. His handler had never observed him behaving in this manner, but when backup arrived and revealed the truth, every officer was left shaken. Here's what transpired. Now, before we delve into today's story, please leave a comment below indicating where in the world you're watching from. And if you enjoy remarkable police dog stories like this one, be sure to click that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what's coming next. A gentle rain fell across Portland's Northwest District, covering the cobblestone streets in a glistening sheen that reflected the faint light of century-old street lamps. Officer Michael Reeves tugged at the collar of his police raincoat, the department patch on his shoulder dampened by the continuous drizzle. Alongside him, Axel, his 4-year partner and German Shepherd K9 officer, moved quietly through the night, his black and tan coat appearing unaffected by the weather. "Quiet night, huh, buddy?" Michael said, observing as Axel's ears twitched, continuously registering the urban soundscape of faraway traffic, the infrequent late-night pedestrian, and the rustle of rain against brick walls. 8 years on the force had shown Michael that beauty frequently masked danger, particularly in the twisting alleys located between Portland's celebrated buildings. Axel proceeded with military precision, each step calculated yet smooth, his training apparent in every motion. The shepherd's amber eyes surveyed their surroundings with a keen intelligence that occasionally made Michael question just how much his partner truly understood. K9-5, this is dispatch. We've got reports of suspicious activity near Westmore and Caldwell. The caller mentioned unusual noises from the historic district, possibly from behind the old Harrington building. Michael activated his radio. Dispatch, K9-5 responding. We are 2 blocks away. We will investigate. Probably just the usual, Michael said to Axel, his voice low. Someone taking shelter from the rain. Maybe some teenagers thinking they found a good spot to hang out. Portland's historic district was full of recessed doorways and forgotten maintenance alleys that regularly attracted both the homeless and thrill-seeking youths. As they neared the Harrington building, a restored brick structure dating back to the 1890s, Michael directed his flashlight beam across the building's exterior. "Let's check the back," he proposed, turning towards the service alley located behind the row of historic buildings. At that moment, everything shifted. Axel's demeanor instantly changed. The easy, assured walk disappeared, superseded by tense readiness. His ears moved forward, his tail became straight, and every muscle in his strong body tightened noticeably under his damp fur. Michael had observed his partner signaling the presence of suspects, drugs, and weapons before, but this felt unusual. There was no sign of eagerness or the expectation that usually came with a positive discovery. "What is it, boy?" Michael asked, quickly checking their surroundings for danger. Axel made no barking or whining sounds. He remained focused on the alley entrance, a quiet growl vibrating in his chest. The shepherd's actions caused a wave of unease to ripple through Michael, unrelated to the rain wetting his collar. Dispatch K9-5. Michael spoke into his radio, the tightness in his voice evident. "We're at the alley off Westmore, behind the Harrington building. Something feels amiss. Axel is displaying atypical behavior, requesting another unit to help investigate the situation." The usually reliable dog took a cautious step backward, leaning against Michael's leg, a behavior he'd never displayed previously. In 4 years of confronting armed suspects, entering burning buildings, and traversing disaster scenes, Michael had never witnessed his partner show fear. The alley extended before them, resembling a tight canyon, bordered by the imposing brick walls of buildings erected in a different century. Metal fire escapes angled downwards along the building's walls, their stares reflecting the faint light with a wet sheen. Michael's flashlight appeared to be absorbed by the surrounding darkness, failing to cut through it. "Axel, move forward," Michael ordered, his voice steady despite his rising apprehension. For the initial time in their collaboration, Axel paused before responding to a direct instruction. The shepherd advanced 2 hesitant steps into the alley, then halted abruptly, exhibiting not the watchful readiness of a dog sensing drugs or bombs, nor the defensive posture of one confronting danger. This was a wholly different reaction. Axel remained still, his form tense, his gaze fixed on something in the distance that Michael couldn't perceive. Michael recalled their training sessions at the academy. The instructor's words resonated in his thoughts. Dogs possess an ability to perceive not only what exists but also what is amiss, demonstrating a perceptive capacity that surpasses human comprehension. Should your K9 partner display behavior you have not previously observed, be vigilant. It could potentially save your life. Dispatch requesting immediate backup at my location. K9 is exhibiting unprecedented behavior. Something's very wrong here. Copy that. K95. Units 12 and 17 are responding. ETA 4 minutes. The sound of boots impacting puddles signaled the arrival of backup. Raindrops clung to officers Layla Torres and Keith Mercer as they stepped forward, their tactical flashlights illuminating the gloom. "What's the situation, Reeves?" Torres inquired, her hand naturally positioned on her holstered weapon as she surveyed the alley. "It's Axel," Michael responded, indicating his motionless partner. "We were answering the suspicious activity report when he simply halted. He won't advance, he won't go back. I've never witnessed him behaving this way." Mercer's eyebrows lifted in disbelief. "We hurried here because your dog became startled? Could have been anything, another animal, an unusual odor. It's impossible to say." "That's the point," Michael stated directly. "Axel doesn't become startled. Not by animals, not by suspects, not by anything we've seen before. This is unlike anything we've experienced." The officers systematically searched the accessible area of the alley, checking behind dumpsters and inspecting doorways. "Nothing apparent," Torres said after a few minutes. There were no indications of forced entry, no people present, and no apparent dangers. Almost immediately after, Axel emitted a quiet whine, a sound so unusual that the 3 officers became alert. The shepherd subtly changed his position, still hesitant to move forward, but now actively opposing Michael's mild attempts to guide him back to the road. "We ought to report this as a false alarm," Mercer proposed, but he seemed unsure. "Perhaps we should have Axel examined." Michael remained steadfast. "We need to investigate further. Axel is never incorrect, merely sometimes anticipating what we comprehend. Could we have thermal imaging deployed here?" The thermal imaging unit was received by Officer Dawson, the department's technology specialist. Rain fell on the equipment's protective case as he meticulously assembled it near their patrol vehicles. "You're fortunate I was already in the field," Dawson stated, while calibrating the device. "What precisely are we searching for?" "Anything unusual?" Michael asked, looking back at Axel, who stayed in the same motionless state. He listed possibilities: people concealing themselves, surprising heat signatures, structural irregularities, anything that could account for Axel's reaction. Dawson agreed, lifting the thermal viewer to survey the alley. "That's strange," he said softly, modifying the device's settings. "I'm detecting cold areas alternating with warm areas further into the alley, which isn't typical heat distribution." The 3 officers proceeded cautiously, with Dawson consistently observing the thermal imaging device. Approximately 60 feet into the alley, the scanner detected a notable temperature difference close to the ground. At that point, Dawson indicated a section of wall partly hidden by a dumpster. He noted that area displayed an unusual thermal pattern, showing cold spots that were unexpected. Michael then shone his flashlight to the spot Dawson had shown. Initially, it seemed like a standard section of the building's foundation. However, a more careful look showed slight variations. The bricks didn't align with the primary wall's design, and a narrow line indicated what seemed to be a maintenance entrance. "That's not documented in any of the building plans I've reviewed," Mercer stated, shifting the dumpster to gain a clearer perspective. "And look at this. The beam of his flashlight revealed new scuff marks on the ground, indicating the recent movement of the large dumpster. The maintenance door's lock displayed indications of being forced, and the settled dust had been disrupted. Michael noticed something additional. A small symbol was etched into the metal frame of the door. It wasn't graffiti, but rather a carefully and deliberately created design. A circle encompassed a stylized eye with emanating lines. "We need to document this," he stated, taking photos with his department-issued phone, "and to call in additional units. Dispatch, we've located a concealed entrance showing signs of recent activity, requesting Detective Division and additional backup for further investigation. Copy that, Unit 17. Detective Division notified. Be advised, Detective Wright is responding personally." Detective Marcus Wright arrived 20 minutes later, his weathered face serious beneath the brim of a rain-speckled fedora. Wright, at the age of 53, held legendary status within the department. His 25 years of experience had fostered a nearly uncanny knack for linking seemingly unrelated pieces of evidence. "I've witnessed this previously," Wright stated softly, gesturing above the carving without making contact. "3 cases within the past year, all related to trafficking activities. These are highly developed operations. The warrants have been approved. We are proceeding with complete tactical authorization. Drawing on patterns from comparable operations, this entrance probably connects to a tunnel system situated under the historic district. Several of these buildings originate from the 1890s, and the subterranean network was substantial, largely lost to memory until criminals located it again." The maintenance door gave way to specialized entry tools, exposing a confined stairwell leading downwards into darkness. A stale odor of aged brick and motionless air rose from below. Wright instructed Reeves, "Your partner remains here with Torres." Given his reaction, he added, "I don't want to risk." He was interrupted by Axel's sudden movement. After almost an hour of complete immobility, the shepherd padded forward, pausing at the entrance to the stairwell. His earlier fear appeared transformed into determined purpose. "I believe he wants to lead," Michael said, surprised by the change. Wright considered this. "Your call, officer. You know your partner best." The initial descent was spearheaded by Axel, with Michael, Wright, and 4 other officers following. Their flashlights revealed a passage that had undergone recent renovations. The original brick walls were reinforced with contemporary metal supports, and electrical conduit was installed along the ceiling, while the floor had been cleared of any obstructions. "Someone has invested resources here," Wright noted. "These aren't just casual trespassers." The passage stretched approximately 100 yards before widening into a more spacious area displaying evidence of recent use. Sleeping bags were carefully arranged against one wall. A portable generator remained still in the corner. Particularly unsettling were the restraints secured to another wall, several sets designed to accommodate various wrist sizes. Axel proceeded deliberately around the chamber, his nose working continuously, then centered his attention on a metal footlocker located beneath a temporary table. Michael carefully opened the container, revealing dozens of passports, ID cards, and personal effects. He reported, leafing through the documents, that they bore different names and nationalities, but the individuals appeared to be of similar ages, mostly late teens and early 20s. Wright examined a detailed map pinned to the wall. "Look at this," he said. It displayed the entire tunnel network with connections to at least 6 buildings above. They were utilizing the old bootlegger routes from Prohibition, supplemented by some newer additions. Axel stiffened again, turning toward one of the 3 tunnel entrances extending from the main chamber. This was a posture of readiness, unlike his previous stillness, that Michael recognized. The dog had identified something particular. "He's detected something," Michael told the others, drawing his weapon. "Fresh scent, I'm guessing." "Which tunnel?" Wright asked, moving to stand beside him. "The eastern one," Michael replied, referencing his position. Wright checked the map. "That leads toward the river. Approximately 200 yards ahead lies a significant intersection, branching into several paths." The detective swiftly decided, "We have sufficient resources for a complete operational deployment. I'm requesting tactical teams to secure the alternative access points." He pointed out several locations on the map. "Are we proceeding?" Michael inquired, observing Axel's growing anticipation. Wright nodded gravely. Your partner reports the presence of something or someone newly arrived in that tunnel. Whether they were victims or suspects, action was necessary, and they weren't delaying. Axel guided them further into the tunnel system. His previous uncertainty vanished. The tunnel then led to a more expansive, roughly circular chamber, with 5 passages extending outwards, resembling spokes on a wheel. We are directly under the Westmoreland building, Wright stated, checking a compact GPS device. The former bank, dating back to the 1920s and now converted into luxury apartments, provided a perfect cover. Residents were constantly coming and going at all hours, and no one questioned deliveries or service visits. Axel circled the chamber, his nose working overtime, before settling precisely between 2 of the outgoing tunnels. This alert posture indicated he had found what he was searching for, but could not pinpoint a specific location. Both passages Michael interpreted with the sense originating from both directions. Wright divided their small team. Mercer, you and Jefferson proceed along the right passage with Reeves and Axel. Henderson and I will take the left, maintain radio contact every 2 minutes, and initiate an immediate call if you discover anything. The passage gradually widened again, indicating signs of more extensive renovation. After approximately 100 yards, they arrived at another chamber, this one clearly designed for human occupation. This room differed from the initial one they found. It had been transformed into a regulated environment. Sections separated by lockable doors ran along one wall. A complex computer system was situated on another. Filing cabinets, a medical examination table, and recording devices finished the unsettling display. Jesus, Mercer said, observing the scene. What the heck is this place? Michael remained silent, observing as Axel carefully examined the room, indicating particular cabinets and locations. Following his partner's direction, Michael located several passports and identification papers, each bearing different names but featuring identical photographs. Even more unsettling were the medical records, containing detailed examinations, blood analysis, and psychological evaluations. They're manipulating people here, Michael stated at last, the weight of realization dawning on him. Assessing them, establishing new identities, and readying them for the future. Jefferson had opened one of the file cabinets. Sir, you need to see this. The drawer held numerous folders, each marked with a name, date, and destination code. Affixed to each file was a photograph of a young person, most appearing frightened, disoriented, or unnaturally sedated. This isn't just trafficking, Wright stated from the doorway, having rejoined them after exploring the other passage. This was a complex operation. He displayed a leather-bound journal. Financial records were discovered in the other chamber, revealing millions of dollars in transactions. Axel persisted in his careful examination of the chamber, finally settling in front of a metal door located at the far end of the room. Another guarded location. This door differed from those previously found. It was heavier, secured with a modern electronic lock instead of a traditional deadbolt. There are people behind that door, Michael said, moving to join his partner. Wright examined the lock system. High-end security. They're keeping something valuable in there. Or someone, Mercer added. The detective pulled a specialized electronic bypass tool from his tactical vest. Standard override should work. Everyone ready? We don't know what's on the other side. Weapons drawn, the officers positioned themselves as Wright bypassed the security system. With a pneumatic hiss, the substantial door swung open, presenting a striking difference from the functional areas seen before. The room beyond enjoyed climate control and featured costly leather sofas, antique rugs, and modern artwork. A bar was situated in one corner, filled with high-end spirits. A large window seemed to dominate one wall, although the area visible through it was presently unlit. Wright approached a control panel located close to the viewing window. It wasn't a club, it was an auction house. He activated a button, revealing the space beyond the glass. The connected room held a small stage, encircled by theater-style seating accommodating roughly 20 people. Multiple camera angles were covered by mounted cameras, and a podium was positioned at the stage's center. They're selling them, Michael stated, the words tasting like bile in his mouth, selling people to the highest bidder. Axel maintained his alert posture. Without a doubt, his focus had heightened, his gaze moving from the auction room to a second door located at the far end of the VIP lounge. This second door opened into a hallway containing 6 rooms extending from it. Each room was compact, furnished with just a bed and minimal amenities. 5 remained unoccupied, but the 6th, call medical now, Michael instructed as he stepped into the last room. 3 people rested on thin mattresses, 2 young women and a boy who appeared to be no older than 14. All were unconscious, but alive, with intravenous lines connected to their arms from medical bags suspended on portable stands. Sedated, Wright observed, verifying one woman's pulse. The pulse was strong and steady. They would remain under sedation until transport or, he looked back towards the auction room, his expression tightening, until they were sold. Michael heard updates from the tactical teams through his radio, as they secured additional access points within the underground network. Early information showed that at least 2 suspects were caught attempting to escape via a service exit 4 blocks away. The medical team had just reached the 3 victims to provide care, when Axel abruptly stood up, fur bristling. This was not his warning for discovering evidence or even sensing a concealed individual. This served as the initial response, a consequence of an urgent danger. Prior to any action, Axel rapidly entered an unmapped tunnel, his speed requiring Michael to run to maintain visual contact. "Axel, wait," he called, drawing his weapon while running. Correct, potential suspects were in motion. The tunnel made a sharp turn, dividing into smaller passages that indicated recent activity. Michael listened for Mercer and Wright's footsteps as they followed, the sounds bouncing off the walls of the underground maze, but his attention stayed fixed on Axel's quickly fading figure in front. The shepherd moved through the twisting passages with steadfast confidence, making turns without pause. Ahead, Axel's barking resonated back to them, shifting from the controlled quiet of tracking to the sharp warning that indicated he had trapped his target. The passage ended with a rough wooden staircase ascending to a trapdoor. Axel stood at the foot of the stairs, intently observing the ceiling, barking with great force. The trapdoor above them moved slightly, revealing a narrow beam of faint light around its perimeter. Axel's barking grew louder. Rather than opening completely, the trapdoor shut abruptly, accompanied by the noise of a substantial object being pulled across its surface from above. The sound of hurried footsteps faded, accompanied by worried voices. "They're running." Michael began climbing the stairs, but Wright seized his arm. "Wait," he cautioned. "They could be setting a trap." Simultaneously, a quiet electronic beep came from above, followed by the noticeable hiss of gas being emitted. "Back," Wright commanded. "Everyone evacuate this area. Immediately." They retreated, just as a poisonous cloud started to leak through the spaces around the trapdoor. Axel guided them to a point 30 yards behind, where the air was still clean. "CS gas likely," Wright stated. "They're attempting to impede our progress." Jefferson's radio emitted static. The perimeter team was reporting activity at the Sentinel building. 2 suspects were observed leaving through the loading dock, proceeding east on foot. Michael, without awaiting verification, followed his partner, relying on Axel's judgment instead of conventional reasoning. The constricted passage appeared to twist unexpectedly, scarcely wide enough for the officers to pass through in sections, yet it kept a consistent diagonal path. "Clever dog," Wright observed as they reached a broader passage that rose sharply upward. "This has to be an original bootlegger route, not documented on any of the current maps." The passage ended at a corroded iron ladder, leading to a round hatch above. Michael ascended first, exerting force against the substantial cover. The mechanism resisted briefly before yielding with a groan of protest, exposing the interior of what appeared to be an abandoned mechanical room. "We're in the basement of Arlington Place," he reported back, recognizing the distinctive marble flooring visible through a partially open door that's directly across from the Sentinel building. They moved swiftly through the deserted building. Following Axel's silent guidance, the dog moved quickly from one puddle to the next. Michael observed water splashes mirroring the rhythm of running footsteps that had rippled the standing water. They arrived on Eastman Street just in time to witness 2 individuals sprint across the road, 2 blocks distant, and vanish into the entrance of a parking garage. "That's them," Michael exclaimed, starting to run with Axel leading the way. "Dispatch. Suspects are entering the Westover parking structure from the Eastman Street side." On the third level, Axel abruptly decreased his speed, assuming a stalking stance. Just around the bend of the ramp, obscured somewhat by a support column, two men were working intensely at a laptop computer linked to a small portable device. Documents and hard drives were strewn about, and one was carefully inserting papers into a handheld shredder. "Police, don't move," Wright announced, appearing with his weapon raised. The younger of the two men quickly raised his hands, his face paling, while the older one moved to retrieve something from under his jacket. Axel responded immediately, swiftly moving across the space with intense focus. Before the man could finish his action, the shepherd secured the suspect's wrist with a firm bite, applying the necessary pressure to restrain him without causing significant harm. "Weapon," Michael alerted, observing the weapon that had fallen from the suspect's hand. Within seconds, both men were restrained face down on the concrete with their hands zip-tied behind them. The younger one had already begun speaking, his words pouring out in a frantic attempt to distance himself from his companion. "I just handle the tech," he insisted. "I set up the auction software, maintain the network. I never touched any of the merchandise. The people. It was all Kirsch's operation." The processing center located under Portland's historic district transformed into the city's most extensive crime scene in recent history. Over 3 days, teams of forensic specialists meticulously cataloged evidence, documented the facility's layout, and collected DNA samples, which ultimately aided in identifying numerous victims who had previously passed through the operation. "The level of sophistication was particularly unsettling," Wright noted during a short respite. "The majority of trafficking operations we disrupt are spontaneous and lack organization. This operation, however, functions similarly to a Fortune 500 company, exhibiting a corporate structure, quality control measures, and customer service protocols. The victims were regarded as commodities, possessing defined specifications and warranties. The 5 rescued victims were transferred to a specialized trauma center, where medical professionals experienced in trafficking cases are working to stabilize them physically while initiating the significantly longer process of psychological recovery." Wright told Michael that the youngest one was speaking. Just briefly, but it provided a timeline. She had been abducted 6 days ago in Seattle, survived the initial processing, but hadn't yet appeared in their auction catalog. The evidence, obtained from the suspect's laptop, proved to be even more valuable than expected. The documents held more than just customer details and financial data. They included communication records connecting the Portland operation to related sites in Vancouver, San Francisco, and extending eastward to Chicago. "International task forces are already targeting 3 locations based on our intelligence," Wright stated. "The plan involves coordinated raids and simultaneous action to avoid alerting any warning systems." Regarding the symbol discovered, the eye with the radiating lines, Wright confirmed that it represents their branding. "This pattern has emerged in previous instances, though we didn't grasp its meaning at the time. We now recognize it as a marker for their high-end product range, a designation they use, not one I would apply." His reaction clearly showed his displeasure. Each line signifies a distinct service they provide. The largest operations possess the highest number of lines. The one discovered had 7, the greatest number we've ever recorded. 1 week later, Michael and Axel resumed their standard patrol duties. The officer's path intentionally steered clear of the historic district, where the investigation persisted behind police barriers and under the observation of federal agents. Chief Bennett had recognized their requirement to resume a regular routine following the heightened stress of the previous week. The morning presented crisp, clear conditions. Autumn sunlight illuminated Portland's trees with a golden hue as they patrolled their beat through Cathedral Park. Axel proceeded with his characteristic disciplined precision, yet Michael observed a slight alteration in his partner, possibly a greater alertness or a stronger trust in his own intuition. They halted close to the St. John's Bridge, its Gothic arches rising above the Willamette River. Michael released Axel's leash, granting him a short respite in the grass while remaining vigilant about their environment. "You change things, he said softly to the shepherd. It wasn't just concerning those 5 we located, but for hundreds more. They would never meet. Axel looked up at him with those intelligent amber eyes that sometimes seem to understand far more than any animal should. The case had already resulted in coordinated raids in 3 cities, the rescue of 17 additional victims, and the identification of over 40 individuals involved in the trafficking network. Yesterday, Wright had informed me that the International Task Force was planning operations in 6 countries, utilizing evidence obtained from the Portland facility. It was all a consequence of my intervention in that alley, Michael reflected, observing as Axel's ears rotated to follow a passing jogger. It stemmed from my recognizing something amiss and choosing to speak out. Continuing their patrol, Michael reflected on the remarkable connection that has grown between humans and dogs throughout millennia of evolution. What insights from the past understood the value in these animals, not solely as hunters or guardians, but as companions capable of noticing details that humans might overlook. Have you ever felt that an animal perceived something beyond your own awareness? How do dogs such as Axel seem to detect threats that humans miss? We welcome your stories and opinions in the comments below. Do you think the connection between canine officers and their handlers extends past training, potentially reaching a level beyond our complete understanding? Please share your thoughts with our community. If this story of Axel's extraordinary discovery moved you, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another tale of remarkable canine heroes. Share this video with anyone who appreciates the incredible capabilities of working dogs and the special humans who partner with them. Check out our previous canine stories appearing on your screen now, and we'll see you again tomorrow at the same time with another brand new video.